The CFL and its players union have reached a tentative agreement on a new labor contract, ending the second strike in CFL history. I played in Canada for 4 seasons, so let me take you all north of the border. TSN football insider Dave Naylor has followed the entire situation and joins us now. Dave, you know I'm going to side with the players on this one, but the new CBA deal got done 4 days after players from 7 of the 9 teams didn't show up for the start of training camp. Did that kind of force the league's hand, or was it only a matter of time until a new deal was put in place?
You know, I think it was a little bit of both. And the only reason that all 9 teams weren't on strike was because in the province of Alberta, there's a law that basically you have to give 72 hours notice before you can go on strike. Otherwise, they would have all been on strike. And look, I think the money in the CFL is not what it is in the National Football League. And I think what the players were fighting for, you know, when they turned down the final offer on Saturday, and what the league was fighting to protect, was never going to be worth wiping out part of a season. I mean, there's a preseason game that was scheduled for Monday that's now going to be rescheduled, but it will be played in Saskatchewan. I mean, they have the largest season ticket base in the league. They charge a good amount for their tickets. And as we know, players don't get paid full wages for preseason games. So, I mean, that alone, we saw that as a very strong incentive that the league would not want to lose a game like that would have, you know, brought in well over $1 million in revenue with minimal expenses. And so ultimately, I think the players were more resolved than they've ever been. It was a bit of a perfect storm, right? I don't think they've been happy with either of the CBAs they've signed most recently. You had the year in 2020 where they missed a year and basically became the sacrificial lambs for the COVID shutdown season. In 2021, they had a partial season, but again, the economics rolled back. You put all that together, and I think there was just kind of a very unique resolve among them. Football is a tough game from the union side because a lot of the things you're fighting for and a lot of the gains you can make won't affect the players that are in the game now. It's the guys down the road, and we know how fast player turnover can be in football. So it's a tough road, but I think that the players in this case, you know, managed to make some gains by holding strong. But I would have been shocked if we were still in a strike position even a week from now.
All right, you mentioned revenue. Obviously, it's all, you know, it's about the money. It's a business. Football is a business. So what's your biggest takeaway from the new CBA, and how does it benefit both the players and the league?
Well, I think there's 2 areas. As you're well aware, Brandon, there's a rule in the Canadian Football League that says you have to have a certain number of your players Canadian, and not just that, but that 7 of your starters have to be Canadians. And that sometimes puts inferior players on the field and puts better players on the sideline because they're Americans. And what they've done is they've broken that down a little bit. I mean, they've identified guys who qualify as veteran Americans. That's it. If you've been in the league for 5 years or you've been with the same team for 3, you get status as a veteran American. And those players are going to be allowed to play in place of Canadians in much of the games. And that's a real cultural shift for the CFL. I mean, they have really traditionally stood on defending the opportunities for Canadians. And while there's still going to be 7 Canadian starters, and the simplest way I can describe it is the ability to substitute and use Americans in place of Canadians is going to be widely enhanced. And that ultimately, you know, that's about the product. That's about getting more of the best players on the field more often. But the other one, and I think this one's more significant, and you played in the league, so you would recognize what I'm about to talk about. This is a league where the turnover of players, you have the most liberal free agency in all of sports. There's not even a form of restricted free agency, 1 contract, and you can do whatever you want. The result of that is you get massive player turnover in the CFL. You combine that with the nature of professional football and the average career being under 4 years, and fans sometimes feel like they're watching a revolving door within the team and the league. You know, the joke is that fans in the CFL are afraid to buy the jersey because the guy won't be on the team next year. Well, there are some meaningful measures in this CFL, in this CBA, to try to slow that down. If a player is going to re-sign with a team that when his contract expires, if he re-signs with his team, 50% of the final year of his contract is guaranteed. The CFL has never provided any form of guaranteed contracts to its players before. Now they have. That's new. You've got status. As I mentioned, veteran American players are going to be able to play in place of Canadians in many instances of the game. That gives those players value. That's going to keep guys in the league longer. Guys that might have retired a year or two earlier will now have increased value. I think it's a very good CBA for American players. I still think it's a pretty good CBA for Canadians, but it does increase the value of the American players. I think overall, the results of this should be, slower player turnover, both among the teams and out of the league. And that's something I think the league really wanted to address. They think you get a better quality game when you've got better continuity and experience among your players. This CBA should help make that happen.
The game of football continues to evolve. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
My pleasure, Brandon, and great to see you in your new career or next career.
I look better without a helmet than with a helmet.
No comment, man. No comment.